Captain Ji Woo Park watched the alien vessels through the main view screen of U.S. Dauntless. Their sleek, crystalline ships glowed with an eerie blue light as they surrounded her vessel in a display of clear intimidation. She maintained her composure, though inside she felt a mix of fascination and concern at humanity's first contact with the Kryn Federation. The alien ships dwarfed the Dauntless, their massive hulls decorated with what appeared to be living metal that shifted colors in the starlight. The Kryn ambassador's face appeared again on the screen, a being with iridescent scales and multiple eyes arranged in a circular pattern. The universal translator processed his words, which dripped with contempt. "Your vessel is an insult to space travel," the ambassador declared. "Look at its primitive hull plating. Those antiquated weapon mounts. You dare to enter our space with such an obsolete craft. We have children's toys more advanced than your entire ship." Lee Sung, her first officer, caught her eye from his station and gave a subtle nod. His fingers danced across his console, gathering detailed scans of the alien fleet while they were too busy showing off to notice. The corner of his mouth twitched upward slightly. He knew something the aliens didn't. "We mean no offense," Ji Woo replied calmly. "We are on a peaceful mission of exploration. Our ship may not meet your aesthetic standards, but it serves our needs." The ambassador's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. "Serves your needs? Your vessel belongs in a museum, if it's even worthy of that. Our scans show you still use nuclear fusion for power. We mastered quantum fold technology centuries ago." More alien ships emerged from fold space around them, their arrival meant to further intimidate the lone human vessel. Ji Woo noted how they positioned themselves in a standard attack formation. These aliens might be advanced, but their tactical thinking was predictable. Lee Sung's console beeped softly. He had completed his scans of their ships, analyzing their capabilities while they boasted. "Captain," he said quietly, "their shields operate on a rotating frequency. Their weapons are impressive, but they've clearly never faced our type of technology before." Ji Woo nodded slightly. The aliens continued their grandstanding, showing off their ship's capabilities with flashy energy discharges and synchronized maneuvers. They were so focused on demonstrating their superiority that they failed to notice the subtle changes happening aboard the Dauntless. "Your species would be wise to turn back now," the ambassador continued. "Return to your primitive world and do not venture out again until you have achieved a proper level of advancement. We would hate to see your quaint little vessel suffer an unfortunate accident." The threat was clear, but Ji Woo remained unruffled. "Ambassador, I must point out that threatening a peaceful vessel is against interstellar law." The alien's laugh sounded like breaking glass. "Laws? You quote laws to us? We have been masters of space while your kind was still discovering fire. We make the laws out here." At that moment, Lee Sung's console displayed a complete analysis of the alien fleet. Their ships were indeed advanced, but their arrogance had led them to reveal far too much. Every weapon discharge, every shield modulation, every engine signature had been carefully recorded and analyzed. "Captain," Lee Sung whispered, "their technology is advanced but specialized. They've never encountered our type of adaptive systems. They assume all species develop technology along the same path they did." Ji Woo allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had learned long ago not to put all their technological advancement into obvious displays. The Dauntless might look outdated, but appearances could be deceiving. The ambassador was still talking, listing all the ways in which human technology was inferior. Ji Woo let him continue, using the time to have her crew make final preparations. The aliens were so convinced of their superiority that they didn't even maintain proper battle readiness while surrounding what they saw as a primitive vessel. "We grow tired of this discussion," the ambassador finally declared. "You have 1 hour to leave our space. If you remain, we will destroy your vessel as an example to other primitive species who might think to challenge the Kryn Federation." "Ambassador," Ji Woo replied carefully, "I suggest you scan our vessel again. You might find you've missed some important details." The ambassador scoffed, but one of his subordinates performed another scan. This time, the results were different. The Dauntless's hull had subtly changed on a molecular level, and energy readings that weren't there before began to appear. "Impossible," the subordinate said. "Their power signature has changed. The hull is adapting." The ambassador's eyes widened as he finally realized his mistake. The primitive-looking vessel before them was beginning to show its true nature. The dull hull plating was actually a layer of programmable matter. The antiquated weapon mounts housed technology that the Kryn had never encountered. "You should know," Ji Wu said calmly, "that humans learned long ago not to display all our capabilities at once. We believe in keeping something in reserve." The alien ships quickly raised their shields and charged weapons, but their earlier overconfidence had given the humans all the tactical data they needed. The Dauntless's systems were already adapted to counter their technology. "This is your only warning," Ji Wu announced. "Return to your territory and report that humans are not to be judged by appearances. We would prefer peaceful contact, but we are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary." The ambassador's face showed the first signs of uncertainty. The primitive humans he had been mocking now seemed far more dangerous than he had assumed. His ships might have numbers on their side, but they had lost the advantage of technological surprise. Li Sung's scans were complete, the Dauntless's systems fully prepared. The next move would be up to the Kryn Federation. Ji Wu hoped they would choose wisdom over pride, but either way, their first contact had revealed an important truth. In space, assumptions could be deadly. The simple-looking human ship now stood ready, its true capabilities beginning to show. The first contact had gone wrong, but it might just teach the Kryn Federation a valuable lesson about judging other species by their appearances. The Kryn's Supreme Commander Herrick stood in his gleaming command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the human vessel from every angle. His scaled skin rippled with amusement as he broadcast his message across all frequencies, wanting everyone to witness what he saw as humanity's foolishness. "Look at this specimen of inferior engineering," he announced to his fleet. "These humans dare to send a single ship to our borders. Even their bravery is primitive." His laughter echoed through the command center, joined by his officers who knew better than to remain silent. Aboard the U.S. Dauntless, Lieutenant Hansol sat at his weapons station below deck, carefully monitoring the alien transmissions. His fingers moved steadily across his console, inputting complex calculations while the aliens continued their mockery. Each boast from the Kryn revealed more about their tactical systems and capabilities. "Their arrogance makes them careless," Hansol muttered to himself, noting how the Kryn ships were broadcasting their shield frequencies in their eagerness to demonstrate their power. His weapons systems silently logged every detail, adapting and preparing countermeasures. The Kryn's Supreme Commander continued his broadcast, displaying detailed scans of the Dauntless. "Observe their primitive weapon mounts," he declared. "They still use physical projectiles. Their targeting systems are barely worth mentioning. This ship is an insult to space warfare." Hansol allowed himself a small smile as his console displayed the results of his latest calculations. The Kryn's advanced sensors couldn't detect the quantum-sealed compartments hidden throughout the Dauntless. They saw only what humans wanted them to see, an apparently outdated vessel that posed no threat. "Supreme Commander," one of Herrick's officers spoke up, "should we not be concerned that they show no fear?" The officer's scales shifted to a worried shade of blue, but Herrick dismissed his concerns with a wave of his hand. "Fear? They are too primitive to understand they should be afraid," Herrick replied. "Their databases speak of a species barely able to reach their own moon a few centuries ago. They are children playing at being space travelers." Meanwhile, Hansol's weapons systems had finished their analysis. The Kryn's supposedly superior technology followed predictable patterns that could be exploited. Their shields cycled through frequencies in a fixed sequence. Their weapons drew power in measurable bursts. The Kryn fleet continued to maneuver around the Dauntless, putting on a display of their advanced technology. Energy beams danced between their ships, shield harmonics created beautiful light shows, and their engines left trails of exotic particles in their wake. "See how they just watch," Herrick laughed. "They cannot even comprehend the power we display. Their sensors are probably overwhelmed by our magnificence." Hansol's sensors were far from overwhelmed. Each demonstration gave him more data, more variables for his calculations. The weapons under his control silently adjusted, preparing for any possibility. The Kryn's showboating was giving him everything he needed to neutralize their advantages. "Supreme Commander," another officer reported, "the human vessel is maintaining its position. They have made no aggressive moves." "Of course not," Herrick replied. "They know they are outmatched. Soon they will turn their little ship around and flee back to their primitive world. We will be generous and allow them to retreat. After all, we are a civilized species." Below the Dauntless's deck, Hansol completed his final calculations. His weapons were fully configured to counter the Kryn's defenses. Their shield frequencies were mapped, their weapon signatures analyzed, their tactical patterns recorded. All this information had been freely given by an enemy too proud to consider that they were being studied. The Kryn Supreme Commander's voice boomed across space again. "Let this be recorded in our history, how we showed mercy to a lesser species. Let all know the magnificence of the Kryn Federation, how we guide the primitive races of the galaxy." Hansol's console blinked green. All systems were ready. The weapons that the Kryn had dismissed as primitive were now precisely calibrated to their weaknesses. If the aliens chose conflict, they would learn too late that humanity's apparent technological backwardness was a carefully crafted deception. "Send the humans our final warning," Herrick commanded. "Tell them to remove their embarrassing vessel from our space before we are forced to demonstrate our power in a less pleasant way." As the warning was transmitted, Hansol sent a brief message to the bridge. "Weapons systems fully adapted. All calculations complete. Ready for any scenario." He knew the captain would understand the significance. The Kryn's underestimation of human capabilities had given them every advantage they needed. The Supreme Commander's self-satisfied smile faltered slightly when the Dauntless made no move to retreat. "Perhaps they need a more direct demonstration," he mused. "Prepare a low-power weapons burst, something to singe their primitive hull without destroying them completely." But as the Kryn ships charged their weapons, Hansol's fingers rested calmly on his console. The aliens' underestimation of humanity was about to become their greatest mistake. Every boast, every demonstration, every mocking transmission had only served to prepare the Dauntless for what might come next. The simple-looking weapon mounts that the Kryn had ridiculed contained surprises that their scans couldn't detect. Humanity had learned long ago that true power didn't need to be displayed openly. Sometimes, the most effective weapon was allowing your enemy to believe you were harmless until it was too late. The Kryn fleet's sensors suddenly flickered as the U.S. Dauntless began to shimmer like a mirage in space. The lead scientist aboard the Kryn command ship, Dr. Malik, stared at his readings in disbelief as the human vessel's signature started to fade from their detection systems. "Impossible!" Dr. Malik screamed, his scales turning pale with shock. "They cannot have this technology. Their ship is vanishing from all frequencies." His clawed hands moved frantically across his console, trying to recalibrate the sensors. Commander Songmei stood at her tactical station aboard the Dauntless, her fingers steady as she engaged the first phase of their true defense systems. The ship's outer hull began its molecular transformation, shifting from its seemingly primitive appearance to its actual advanced state. "Phase 1 complete," she reported calmly. "Adaptive camouflage fully engaged. The Kryn cannot track us now." The alien vessel's confused movements proved her words as they began to shift position, desperately trying to relocate their target. Panicked communications filled the space around them as the Kryn fleet tried to coordinate their response. "Find that ship." Supreme Commander Herrick's voice boomed across their channels. "How can they hide from our superior sensors? This is primitive deception." Commander Songmai allowed herself a small smile as she monitored the aliens' disarray. The Dauntless's true capabilities were finally revealing themselves. The ship's hull now absorbed all scanning frequencies, while its own sensors remained fully functional. "They're switching to wideband detection," Songmai informed her captain. "Should I engage Phase 2? Her hands hovered over the controls, ready to reveal another layer of their advanced technology. The Kryn ships began firing random patterns of energy beams, hoping to hit their suddenly invisible target. Each burst passed harmlessly through empty space as the Dauntless silently maneuvered between them. Dr. Malik's voice cracked with frustration as he reported to his commander. "Their hull must be using some form of quantum phase technology, but that's impossible. Their civilization isn't advanced enough for such systems." Commander Songmai engaged the second phase of their defense systems. The Dauntless's hull began generating its own energy field, one that could not only deflect the Kryn's weapons, but also absorb and analyze their energy signatures. "They're trying to adapt their sensors," Songmai reported. "But they're still looking for technology they understand. They haven't realized we developed along a different path." The tactical display showed the Kryn ships moving in increasingly erratic patterns. The alien fleet's formation had completely broken down. Ships that had been arranged in perfect attack positions now scattered in different directions, each trying a different method to detect the vanished human vessel. "Their sensors are based on crystalline technology," Songmai observed. "They never considered we might use biological-mechanical hybrid systems." Her console displayed the ongoing analysis of the Kryn's desperate attempts to find them. Supreme Commander Herrick's voice had lost its mocking tone, replaced by barely controlled panic. "Launch sensor probes. Full spectrum scanning. That ship cannot have simply disappeared." His orders betrayed his growing fear of the unknown capabilities they faced. The Dauntless moved silently through the chaos, its advanced systems gathering data from the Kryn's every attempt to detect them. Each failed scan, each missed energy burst, provided more information about their technology. Commander Songmai's tactical display showed the full extent of the aliens' confusion. Their neat formation had dissolved into chaos, with ships nearly colliding as they tried to cover all possible positions where the Dauntless might be. "Should we show them something else?" Songmai asked, her fingers ready to engage even more of their hidden systems. The Dauntless had barely begun to reveal its true nature, and already the mighty Kryn fleet was in disarray. Dr. Malik's increasingly desperate transmissions filled the comm channels. "The human vessel must still be here. Nothing can simply vanish. Check all quantum frequencies. Check subspace variances. Check everything." The Kryn's probes filled the space around them, their sensors searching frantically for any trace of the Dauntless. But humanity's technology had evolved far beyond what they could detect. Each probe passed within meters of the ship without registering its presence. Songmai watched as the alien fleet's coordinated search pattern fell apart. Ships that had proudly displayed their superior technology now moved like frightened animals, jumping at sensor ghosts and false readings. "Their entire tactical doctrine is based on technological superiority," she noted. "They don't know how to handle an enemy they can't detect." The display showed more Kryn ships arriving, but they only added to the confusion. The mighty alien fleet that had surrounded them with such confidence now found itself hunting shadows. Their superior technology, which they had boasted about so proudly, proved useless against capabilities they hadn't believed possible. Commander Songmai's console showed yet more defensive systems ready to deploy, but for now, the simple act of vanishing had thrown the entire Kryn fleet into chaos. Sometimes, she reflected, the most effective demonstration of power was showing your enemy that everything they believed about you was wrong. Captain Jiwoo's order came as the massive asteroid field loomed before them. "Execute pattern Delta," she commanded, her voice steady despite the tension on the bridge. Officer Yumho's hands moved across his navigation console with practiced precision, guiding the Dauntless into the field of tumbling space rocks. The Kryn fleet followed, their larger ships struggling to maintain formation among the asteroids. Young Ho watched their movements on his tactical display, noting how the alien vessels relied heavily on their automated systems for navigation. "They're trying to predict our course," Young Ho reported, as he guided the Dauntless through a particularly narrow gap between two spinning asteroids. The ship responded perfectly to his touch, its enhanced maneuverability systems allowing it to move in ways that defy the aliens' expectations of space physics. Behind them, a Kryn cruiser attempted to follow their exact path and scraped against an asteroid, its shields flaring bright purple. The aliens had not expected a human ship to be capable of such precise navigation. Their ships are designed for open space combat, Young Ho observed as he threaded the Dauntless through another impossible gap. "They never developed the fine control systems we did." His fingers danced across the controls, making minute adjustments that kept them just ahead of their pursuers. The asteroid field grew denser, filled with chunks of rock ranging from the size of small cars to massive planetoids. Young Ho guided them deeper in, using the Dauntless's superior maneuverability to their advantage. The ship spun and weaved through the chaos while maintaining its stealth systems. "Two Kryn ships on collision course with each other," Young Ho announced calmly. The alien vessels had tried to cut off the Dauntless's perceived escape route, only to find themselves in danger of crashing into each other. Their emergency maneuvers sent them tumbling into nearby asteroids. Captain Ji-woo watched the tactical display with satisfaction. "They rely too much on their technology," she noted. "They never learned to truly fly their ships." The Kryn's advanced automated systems were actually working against them in the unpredictable environment. Young Ho guided the Dauntless into a spinning roll between three converging asteroids. The move would have been suicide for most ships, but the Dauntless's enhanced inertial dampeners and structural integrity field made it possible. Behind them, the pursuing Kryn ships were forced to take longer, safer routes. "Their formation is breaking down completely," Young Ho reported. The alien fleet had split into smaller groups, trying to cover more area. But this only made them more vulnerable to the chaotic movements of the asteroids. A massive planetoid rotated ahead of them, its cratered surface offering numerous hiding spots. Young Ho guided the Dauntless into a deep crater, using the natural formation as cover. The Kryn ships passed overhead, their sensors still unable to penetrate the human vessel's stealth systems. "They're starting to fire blindly," Young Ho noted as energy beams cut through space around them. The Kryn's frustration was showing in their increasingly desperate tactics. Their weapons struck asteroids, creating clouds of debris that only made navigation more difficult for them. Captain Ji-woo leaned forward in her chair. "Show them something new, Young Ho. Let's see how they handle pattern echo." A slight smile crossed Young Ho's face as he input the new commands. The Dauntless burst from its hiding place, executing a series of maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. The ship moved as if it had no mass, changing direction instantly while maintaining its structural integrity. The Kryn ships tried to follow, but their bulk made such precise movements impossible. "Their tactical doctrine assumes ships will move in predictable patterns," Young Ho explained as he guided them through another impossible series of turns. "They never considered that a ship could move like this." The Dauntless's advanced propulsion system allowed it to ignore many of the limitations that the Kryn took for granted. More alien ships entered the asteroid field, but they only added to the chaos. Their attempts to coordinate in the confined space led to near collisions and panicked course corrections. The proud Kryn fleet was being outmaneuvered by a single human vessel. Young Ho's fingers continued their dance across the controls, guiding the Dauntless through gaps that the Kryn's sensors insisted were too small for any ship to pass through. The human vessel's adaptive hull could briefly compress itself, allowing it to squeeze through spaces that should have been impossible. "They're trying to predict where we'll go," Young Ho reported with a hint of amusement. "But their computers can't understand our movement patterns." The Dauntless moved with an organic fluidity that the Kryn's rigid tactical programs couldn't anticipate. Another group of Kryn ships appeared ahead of them, thinking they had cut off the Dauntless's escape route. Young Ho simply guided the ship into a vertical spin, slipping through a gap in their formation before they could react. The alien vessel's attempts to follow resulted in more collisions with asteroids. Their entire strategic doctrine is falling apart, Captain Ji Woo observed. The Kryn fleet had completely abandoned their previous formation, reduced to individual ships chasing shadows through the asteroid field. Their supposed superiority had been reduced to frustration and chaos. Young Ho continued guiding the Dauntless through the field, each movement demonstrating capabilities that the Kryn had believed impossible for human technology. The asteroid field had become a chessboard where human skill and innovation were proving more valuable than alien technological advancement. The pride of the Kryn fleet had been reduced to a stumbling chase through space, their superior technology rendered nearly useless by human ingenuity and skill. Young Ho's hands remained steady on the controls, ready to show them even more surprises if necessary. Lieutenant Su Jin watched her quantum matrix displays as the moment of revelation approached. The Dauntless had played its role of seeming primitive long enough. Now it was time to show the Kryn Federation what human technology could really do. Quantum matrix activation sequence initiated, she announced, her fingers moving across the glowing control panel. The ship's hull began to ripple like liquid metal, its surface shifting from dull gray to a deep iridescent black that seemed to absorb nearby starlight. The Kryn fleet fell completely silent as they watched the transformation. Their sensors detected massive energy readings that they had never seen before. The Dauntless's hull wasn't just changing color, it was fundamentally altering its molecular structure. Impossible. The Kryn science officer's voice crackled over the intercepted communications. Their hull, it's reorganizing itself at the quantum level. Their scans showed the primitive metal plates rebuilding themselves into crystalline structures more advanced than anything in their fleet. Su Jin engaged the second phase of the transformation. Panels that had appeared to be simple armor plating split apart, revealing layers of technology that the Kryn's scans hadn't detected. Energy conduits lit up across the hull, pulsing with a soft blue glow. Their weapons are charging, she reported calmly as the Kryn ships panicked and opened fire. Energy beams struck the Dauntless from multiple directions, but Su Jin didn't flinch. The quantum matrix was already adapting. The alien weapons hit their target but dissipated harmlessly against the transformed hull. The Dauntless's new surface didn't just block their attacks, it absorbed the energy, analyzing the weapon signatures and growing stronger with each hit. They're using standard plasma cannons, Su Jin noted, watching the readings. Quantum matrix is adapting to their frequency. The ship's defenses were learning from each attack, becoming more efficient at neutralizing the Kryn's weapons. The Kryn fleet's commander was shouting orders now, his voice losing its previous arrogance. Increase power. Use all frequencies. That ship cannot possibly withstand our combined firepower. But with each new assault, the Dauntless only grew stronger. Su Jin activated the next stage of their defensive systems. The absorbed energy from the Kryn's attacks began flowing through the ship's new crystalline structure, powering up systems that had remained dormant until now. Their sensors are detecting our power buildup, she reported. They're starting to realize what they're actually facing. The Kryn fleet's formations began to waver as ship after ship reported failing attacks against the human vessel's defenses. The Dauntless's transformation continued. Structures that had looked like simple communication arrays unfolded into complex sensor systems. The outdated weapon mounts revealed themselves to be housings for technology that the Kryn had never encountered. Full quantum matrix integration complete, Su Jin announced. The ship now bore little resemblance to its previous form. Where there had been apparently primitive armor, there was now a living metal that shifted and adapted continuously. The Kryn fleet's attempts to damage the Dauntless grew more desperate. They tried concentrating their fire on single points, hoping to overwhelm the defenses. Instead, they watched as their weapons were absorbed and redirected through the ship's crystalline structure. They're scanning us with everything they have, Su Jin observed. Their science ships are trying to understand our technology. But the quantum matrix was beyond their comprehension, It operated on principles their civilization hadn't discovered yet. More Kryn ships arrived, adding their firepower to the assault. Su Jin calmly monitored the energy absorption rates, noting how each new attack pattern only made their defenses stronger. The ship's systems were learning and evolving in real time. Their flagship is charging what appears to be their primary weapon, she reported. The massive Kryn vessel's forward section was glowing with gathered energy. They think overwhelming force will work where precision failed. The blast from the Kryn flagship lit up space like a new star. Su Jin watched calmly as the quantum matrix intercepted the energy beam, redirecting it through the ship's crystalline structure. The attack that should have vaporized them instead became just another power source. All systems holding at optimal levels, she announced. The Dauntless's transformation was now complete. What had appeared to be an outdated human vessel was revealed as something far beyond a Kryn's understanding of technology. The alien fleet's attacks began to slacken as they realized the futility of their efforts. Their most powerful weapons couldn't penetrate defenses that adapted faster than they could attack. The supposedly primitive human ship had become something they couldn't comprehend. Su Jin's displays showed the quantum matrix operating at peak efficiency. The ship's hull continued to shift and flow, adjusting its structure to maintain perfect defense against whatever the Kryn tried next. Their technology wasn't just advanced, it was alive in a way the aliens had never seen. The Kryn fleet's communications were filled with confusion and fear now. They had mocked what they thought was an inferior vessel, only to find themselves facing technology that made their own look primitive in comparison. The hunters had become the hunted, and they knew it. "Should I bring our offensive systems online?" Su Jin asked, her hands hovering over the controls. The quantum matrix had more surprises to reveal if necessary. The Dauntless hadn't just been hiding its defenses, its weapons were equally advanced. The transformed ship hung in space like a dark star, its crystalline surface rippling with absorbed energy. The Kryn fleet faced a choice: continue their hopeless attack or accept that they had severely underestimated human technological capabilities. Captain Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the transformed Dauntless, her eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the scattered Kryn fleet. The ship's metamorphosis had reached completion, its true form now revealed. A vessel of living metal and quantum technology that made the aliens' advanced ships look obsolete. "Open a channel to all Kryn vessels," she ordered. Commander Songmi's fingers moved across her tactical station, establishing the connection. The alien ships hung in space, their previous confidence shattered by the revelation of human technological capabilities. "This is Captain Jiwoo of the U.S. Dauntless," she announced, her voice calm but firm. "This is your final warning. Withdraw your forces immediately, or we will be forced to demonstrate our offensive capabilities." Her words carried across space to the stunned Kryn fleet. Commander Songmi's hand hovered over the main weapon controls. The Dauntless's weapons systems had undergone the same transformation as its hull, revealing arrays of technology that the Kryn had never encountered. Their scans couldn't even begin to understand what they were facing. The Kryn Supreme Commander's voice crackled over the comm, his previous arrogance replaced by barely controlled fear. "You deceived us. Your ship. This is impossible." His fleet's formations had broken down completely, ships clustering together like nervous animals. "We didn't deceive you," Jiwoo replied. "You deceived yourselves with your own assumptions. We chose not to correct your mistake until it became necessary." The tactical display showed more Kryn ships arriving, but they held position far from the Dauntless. Songmi monitored her weapons display as the alien vessels tried to regroup. The Dauntless's main weapon system was fully charged, drawing power from the energy their enemies had wastefully expended trying to destroy them. "Their flagship is powering up again," Songmi reported quietly. "They're trying to coordinate their fleet for another attack." The alien vessels were moving into a new formation, but their movements betrayed their uncertainty. Jiwoo watched the Kryn ships maneuver, noting how their once precise formations had become ragged and hesitant. "They still don't understand," she said. "They think numbers will save them." The Dauntless's sensors showed the alien fleet preparing all their weapons. Main weapon system at full capacity, solemnly announced. The transformed ship hummed with gathered power, its crystalline structure channeling energy in ways that defied the aliens' understanding of physics. The Kryn Supreme Commander's voice came again, trying to sound confident. Whatever deception you have used, you are still one ship against many. Surrender now, and we may show mercy. But his words lacked conviction. Commander Songme, Ji Woo said calmly, give them a small demonstration. Songme nodded and activated a fraction of their weapon's power. A pulse of energy rippled from the Dauntless, passing through the Kryn fleet's shields as if they didn't exist. Alarms blared across the alien ships as their systems temporarily failed. The pulse hadn't damaged them, but it had shown them how easily it could have. Their shields, which they had believed impenetrable, had offered no protection. That was less than 1% of our weapons capacity, Ji Woo informed them. The next demonstration will not be so gentle. Withdraw your forces now. The Dauntless's transformed hull pulsed with contained power, ready to release its full potential. Songme's tactical display showed the Kryn ship's reactions. Some began to retreat immediately, while others held position, waiting for orders. Their fleet's unity was crumbling in the face of technology they couldn't comprehend. Impossible, the Supreme Commander shouted. No single ship can have such power. This must be some kind of trick. But even as he spoke, more of his ships were breaking formation, moving away from the Dauntless. Ji Woo's voice remained steady. Your sensors tell you it's not a trick. Your weapons can't harm us. Your shields can't stop us. This is your last chance to withdraw with your fleet intact. The transformed ship hung in space like a dark star, waiting. Songme's hand remained poised over the controls as she monitored the alien fleet's movements. The Dauntless's main weapon could end the battle in moments, but they all hoped it wouldn't be necessary. The demonstration had made their point. They're powering down their weapons, Songme reported. One by one, the Kryn ships were standing down, their crews finally accepting the reality of their situation. The mighty alien fleet had been humbled by a single human vessel. Supreme Commander, Ji Woo said, your fleet is retreating. Will you join them, or do you require another demonstration? The Kryn flagship hung in space for a long moment before its weapons powered down. The alien commander's voice had lost all its previous pride when he finally responded. We will withdraw. But know this, the Kryn Federation will not forget this day. His flagship began to turn away from the Dauntless. Songme's display showed the alien fleet in full retreat, their once proud ships fleeing from the transformed human vessel. The Dauntless's metamorphosis had shown them that their assumptions about human technology had been dangerously wrong. Should we power down the weapons system? Songme asked as the last Kryn ships disappeared into fold space. The Dauntless's transformed hull continued to pulse with contained energy, ready to defend against any final acts of defiance. Ji Woo watched the tactical display until the last alien signal vanished. Their final stand had ended without bloodshed, proving that sometimes the most powerful weapon was showing your enemy how powerless they truly were. Captain Ji Woo watched the last energy signatures of the retreating Kryn fleet fade from the Dauntless's sensors. The transformed ship hung silently in space, its crystalline hull still rippling with absorbed power. Around them, the aftermath of the confrontation was evident: scattered debris from damaged Kryn vessels and lingering energy signatures from their hasty retreat. Open a final channel, she ordered, her voice carrying the quiet confidence of victory. The communications officer quickly established the connection to the remaining Kryn vessels still within range. This is Captain Ji Woo of the U.S. Dauntless, she announced. Next time, don't judge a book by its cover. Humanity is more than what we appear to be. The message transmitted across space, reaching the last few alien ships as they prepared to jump to fold space. The Kryn Supreme Commander's response came after a long pause, his voice stripped of its former arrogance. We have learned much today, Captain. The Kryn Federation acknowledges your strength. His flagship, once proud and threatening, now seemed small against the backdrop of space. Lieutenant Sujin's quantum matrix displays showed the Dauntless gradually powering down its advanced systems. The ship's hull began to shift again, not returning to its previous primitive appearance, but settling into a more neutral state. There was no longer any need to hide their true capabilities. Their scientists are still trying to scan us, Commander Songmai reported from Tactical. They're desperate to understand our technology. The remaining Kryn vessels lingered at the edge of sensor range, their instruments focused on the human ship. Jiwu smiled slightly. Let them look. Sometimes the best education comes from realizing how much you don't know. The Dauntless's systems had revealed only a fraction of their true potential, leaving the aliens to wonder what other surprises humans might possess. Officer Young-ho's navigation console showed the strategic implications of their victory. The Kryn are broadcasting warnings to their entire fleet, he reported. They're telling all ships to avoid confrontation with human vessels. The message was spreading rapidly through alien communication channels. The bridge crew watched as the last Kryn ships prepared to depart. Their once mighty fleet had been humbled not by force, but by the revelation that their technological superiority had been an illusion. The lesson would not be quickly forgotten. They're requesting permission to establish diplomatic relations, the communications officer announced, surprise evident in her voice. Through proper channels this time. The Kryn's attitude had shifted from contempt to cautious respect. Jiwu nodded. Send them the standard diplomatic protocols. Let them learn to approach humans as equals. The Dauntless's transformed hull reflected starlight in complex patterns, a visible reminder of humanity's hidden strength. Commander Songmai's tactical display showed the ripple effects of their encounter spreading through nearby space. Other alien vessels were altering course to give the Dauntless a wide berth. The word was spreading. Humans were not to be underestimated. Final Kryn ship preparing to jump to fold space. Young-ho reported. The alien flagship lingered for a moment longer, its sensors still drinking in data about the human vessel that had shattered their preconceptions. Captain, the Supreme Commander's voice came one last time. The Kryn Federation acknowledges its error in judgment. We look forward to more peaceful interactions in the future. His words carried the weight of a lesson painfully learned. Jiwu's response was measured but firm. We welcome peaceful contact with all species, Commander. Remember this day when you encounter others who seem less advanced than you. The message was clear. Technological arrogance could be a dangerous weakness. The Dauntless's sensors recorded the final Kryn ship's departure, its energy signature vanishing into fold space. The confrontation was over, but its impact would resonate through the galaxy. Humanity had revealed itself as a force to be respected. Lieutenant Sujin's quantum matrix readings showed the ship's systems returning to normal operating levels. The transformation drew attention from at least 6 other alien species, she reported. They all recorded what happened here. Jiwu stood from her command chair, looking at the still transformed hull of her ship displayed on the main screen. Then our message will spread even further. Humanity's path of technological development may be different, but it is no less advanced. The bridge crew began compiling their reports as the Dauntless prepared to resume its mission. They had achieved more than just a victory. They had changed the way an entire civilization viewed humanity. The Kryn's assumption of superiority had been replaced by newfound respect. Plot a course to continue our patrol, Jiwu ordered. The transformed ship turned gracefully in space, its crystalline hull catching and refracting starlight. They had taught one species a valuable lesson about humility. Perhaps others would learn from the Kryn's mistake. As the Dauntless moved forward, its true nature now revealed, the crew knew that their encounter would become a story told throughout the galaxy. The day when human ingenuity and hidden strength had humbled an arrogant empire, teaching them that true power often lay beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed.